Hi everybody, it's Christina with My Confection Obsession, and today we're going to be making a pink champagne cake. And before we get started, I do want to let everybody know that we have our oven preheated to 350. And for this recipe, we're going to be using 3 8-inch cake pans. Alright, so let's go ahead and go over the ingredients that we're going to be needing for this. So we have 3 cups of cake flour, a tablespoon of baking powder, half a teaspoon of salt. We have 6 egg whites, 1 cup of pink champagne, 2 teaspoons of vanilla, 2 tablespoons of vegetable oil, 2 cups of sugar, and 1 cup of butter, which is 2 sticks. And then we also have a little bit of pink food coloring that we're going to use. And I like to use a toothpick because we actually don't need that much at all. And so we're just going to dip that in at the very end of the recipe. Okay, so the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to have a separate bowl ready. And I'm going to be whisking my cake flour, my baking powder, and my salt together, and then we're going to set it aside. So 3 cups of cake flour, our baking powder, and our salt. So we're going to go ahead and just whisk that together and set it aside. Alright, so the second part that we're going to do is we are going to, in another separate bowl, we're going to mix our egg whites, champagne, vanilla, and oil together. So 6 egg whites, 1 cup of pink champagne. So because we're using a cup, you can definitely taste the flavor. A lot of people will ask, will the taste burn off or bake off? And it definitely doesn't. I've made this cake before and it's gotten rave reviews, and you can definitely taste that it's champagne. So oil and our vanilla. So we're just gonna whisk this together. Use my hand mixer here. And in your biggest mixing bowl, what you're gonna do is we're gonna combine our sugar and our butter, and we're gonna whip that together for quite a while, for between 3 to 5 minutes. So our 1 cup of butter and 2 cups of sugar. So 3 to 5 minutes. So that's been blended for about 3 minutes. And what I'm going to do next is I'm going to be alternating between my dry and my wet ingredients. And typically with cake recipes, you always start adding the dry first, and you alternate, so you can think of it like 3 dry and 2 wet. So we'll go ahead and start that. So about 1/3 of this is going to go in. And we're gonna mix in between each one. Okay, so then about half of our wet ingredients. It smells really good. It kind of smells like the weekend, like ready to relax. So the second third of the dry ingredient. The last bit of the dry ingredients. add our food coloring, I am going to go ahead and give a scrape around the sides of the bowl because a little bit of the flour went up there. Just want to make sure everything is mixed in correctly. And the last thing we're gonna do before we add this to our cake pans, I'm gonna take a little bit of this pink food coloring, and just to give it a little bit of a blush color, like really, really light pink, I'm just gonna take a toothpick and dip it in. So it's not very much at all, and add that in there. So I'm gonna mix it and see if I like that color. So I can tell I need a little bit more, so I'm gonna add a bit more to this. All right, so I am happy with this color. It's a very light pink, but of course this is your preference, so mine is a very, very pale blush. All right, so what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna go ahead and divide this batter into 3 pans. And I'm going to put it in the oven for between 25 and 30 minutes. So let's go ahead and do that. So I'll start with my first pan. So with cake pans, you really never want to fill them more than halfway to the top because they don't bake evenly and the middle won't get done typically if you fill it any more than that. Go ahead and put this in the oven. All right, so while our cake is baking, we're gonna go ahead and take this time to prepare our pink champagne frosting. For this recipe, we are going to need 4 sticks of softened butter, so 2 cups, about 10 cups of confectioner's sugar. We have 4 teaspoons of vanilla, half a teaspoon of salt, and about 1/4 of a cup of pink champagne. So what we're gonna do first is we are going to throw our butter into our bowl, and we're gonna whip that until it's nice and creamy. So we're gonna go ahead and mix this for about 3 minutes. Next, we're gonna throw in our vanilla and our salt and mix that in. So next I'm gonna start adding my powdered sugar and my pink champagne. And I'm actually not gonna add all 10 cups right now. I'm gonna add almost all of it, but I wanna kind of play with the consistency. It's key with cakes, you definitely don't want frosting that is too thick. Then it doesn't smooth nicely, it just doesn't look right. But of course we also don't want something that's too soft because then it kind of looks runny and it won't really stay on the cake. So I'm gonna probably start by adding maybe about 9 cups. Ooh, and spill it. And then I am gonna add my champagne on top of that. And I'm just gonna start by mixing it on low so it doesn't fly everywhere like it just did. So I can see it's starting to come together. But I'm not afraid that the sugar is gonna go everywhere. I can turn my speed up a little bit higher. So I'm looking at this and I think I actually am gonna add a bit more sugar and actually a little bit more champagne to get the consistency that I like. So I'm gonna add some more sugar. And I'm gonna add probably about another tablespoon of pink champagne. I'm not gonna use all of this right now. I wanna make sure that this is really smooth, so I'm actually gonna whip this probably for about 5 minutes. So to me, this consistency is just about perfect. So in all, I used about 10 cups of powdered sugar, a 1/4 cup of champagne, plus about 2 tablespoons. So the very last thing I'm gonna do, just like we did to our cake batter, I'm gonna put a little bit of pink food coloring in here just to get that really pretty blush color. So exact same way, I'm just gonna take probably about 2 toothpicks this time. So, because we really don't want too much, I just want a blush color. So 1 toothpick, I'm gonna do a second one. And I just drag it in the frosting. And we'll go ahead and mix that in. And before I deem this completely ready, I'm gonna give it 1 scrape around the sides. This color is perfect. I love blush pink. I think it's so soft and pretty. And it pretty much matches our champagne that we used perfectly. Okay, and 1 final mix. Alright, so this is perfect. So we have this ready for when we are going to assemble our cakes. So now that we have all 3 layers baked and cooled, we're gonna go ahead and assemble this. So I have my first layer. I'm just going to put a little bit of frosting in between. So I always like to start in the center and work my way out. And I'm just using a butter knife for this part. Some people like to use pastry bags. I don't find it necessary, and I think it just adds 1 more step to clean up. So I'm gonna go ahead and put my second layer on top of this. This cake is completely cooled. Might need a little bit of help getting out. So I'm keeping my flattest side on the top. And our final layer. Just gonna run a knife around it to loosen it. We're gonna give it an all over crumb coat and put it in the fridge to chill for about ½ an hour. So we're just doing a light coating here. A crumb coat does not need to be thick. Okay, so this has been completely crumb coated. I'm just gonna put it in the fridge for about ½ an hour before I put my final layer of frosting on and pretty it up. Okay, so our cake has been crumb coated and chilled, and we're gonna go ahead and put our final layer of frosting on it. And I think I am gonna add just a few little designs on it to make sure that it looks perfect. All right, so I'm gonna go ahead and start. And again, for this, I'm just using a butter knife. Starting from the center and working my way out. So as I'm going, I am smoothing out kind of the bigger kind of like globs of frosting. I'm just doing that preemptively before I actually smooth it. So my second coat looks pretty good. So what I'm going to use is my flat spatula, And I am gonna want some paper towels to clean it in between swipes, which I'm gonna grab right now. So I'm just gonna go ahead and start at the top, and I am holding it parallel to the cake. I'm not putting too much pressure on it, but I'm giving it first swipe just right across, and then between each swipe, I'm gonna wipe it on the bowl, and I am going to clean the spatula. That's the key. If you don't clean it in between, you will not get a smooth surface. Spatula right next to the cake and not applying too much pressure, but I'm going to apply a little bit, and some of that frosting is going to come off. So using my turntable to turn the cake, and make sure you're scraping it here, cleaning between. So now I have my second coat, and I am going to add just a little bit of like dollops of frosting to the top, just to make it look a little bit nicer. So I am done putting my little bit of extra on the top, so this cake looks great. I hope that you guys enjoyed this recipe. I hope you enjoyed this episode. If you did, please subscribe to my channel below.